We're living in a time where it's really easy to polarize and demonize others. What I want to talk about is how important it is for allies, how important it is to be kind to one another, and what it actually means to be proactive. I'm here today with Creighton, who is a former president of the Toronto Pflag chapter, and I'm really interested in chatting with her because she brings a warmth, a kindness, a knowledge, and a compassionate spirit. So join us for this awesome conversation. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh, thanks.
With your experience as a mom to a parent of someone on the rainbow spectrum, you have such a unique experience, and also how that led you to, I think you were an advocate and activist before that, but really to champion. It's a touching part for me personally, because I know that when I was a young person, not really out and seeing parents march during Pride, I was like, oh, what would it be? What would it feel like to be accepted? What would it feel like to be seen for who I am?
Yeah.
So I'd like to turn it over to you, just to talk a little bit, like introduce yourself and your story.
Sure. I first heard about Pflag when I was in my early 20s and working at Queen's Park. There was a person in our office who was gay and had taken pictures at the Pride Parade, and he was showing me his pictures. And they were all these fabulous people, all in glitter and dancing and so on. And then there was this picture of a bunch of old people wearing Tilly hats.
Okay.
And I said to him, "Who are they?" And he said, "That's Pflag." He said, "They're the parents of people who are gay."
Yeah.
And he welled up saying that. And I thought, oh. And every time I look at our contingent lined up on Bloor Street, ready to march, and I look at our hats, I think nothing has changed.
I can resonate. Yeah, that resonates.
So that was my introduction to Pflag. So it was in my brain. And then fast forward, my husband and I adopt 2 children, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, brother and sister, from the Catholic Children's Aid. They were local kids. And the eldest came to me and said, "I don't want to wear dresses anymore." And we had been parents for 5 minutes. So I wasn't going to die on that hill. So I said, all right, okay. And we shopped in the boys department for both of them.
Okay. And this was at 5 years old?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So she didn't have words at that time. But we figured right from the get-go that she had landed on the rainbow.
Right. Okay.
And we were very intentional about saying, isn't it great that we live in Canada where you can love who you love and marry who you want? And, It's super that this is possible. And we had, any time it came up sort of naturally in conversation, we were sure to send a positive message. But she didn't tell us anything until she was 16.
Okay.
And it was because we had never looked into her beautiful blue eyes and said, we would be fine if you are gay, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't give her that assurance directly.
Yeah.
So she came up with a plan B. She, talked to her friend. Could she stay there if it didn't go well with us? It was, when I heard about all of this after the fact, I was mortified. And I thought, I can do better. We can do better. So I called up Pflag and said, I'm not troubled at all by having a kid who's part of the community. I think I just want to join. I just want to be part of your group. And I went to my first meeting and realized how arrogant I was. I needed all kinds of support. I didn't know I needed it, but I did. So I got the support I needed and I stayed. I loved what they were doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to help. And I'm still doing that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it is, I'm sure, even now in this day and age that we live in 2023, where so many, it feels like we live in a society where it's more accepting and we've overcome many milestones. But I also feel like we're entering a chapter where we're feeling and hearing a lot of rollbacks of these things, which is very disheartening, because I am a firm believer that it doesn't matter whether you're on the rainbow, it doesn't matter what your skin color is like, what your gender is, and these things, that we're all people.
Yeah.
And we all deserve to be respected. We all deserve to have those basic human rights of kindness, right? Not asking for much.
No.
But the rhetoric right now has a lot of negative sentiments, which is very hurtful and very disturbing.
Oh, we can't stop pushing. We can't stop responding when we see that sort of thing happen. Yeah. It's happening right now at our own TDSB.
Yes, I see it. I have kids in the school system.
They're sending home permission slips now to have a drag queen story time at an elementary school.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to do that.
Right.
They are not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But they are basically saying you need to be cautious about giving permission for your child to sit and hear a story about why Max likes dresses. Like, seriously? A permission slip?
Yeah.
That's othering, right?
Yeah.
That is suggesting there's something dangerous about a member of the community reading a story.
All right. I mean, it's also very interesting right now with even raising the pride flag.
Yeah.
In the Catholic school board, and that there was a whole intentionalness of having trustees who were quite right to take up those spaces and to roll back those efforts, and how we see the movement from the states try to replicate, with Roe versus Wade and the rollback of those rights for abortion, and how they're trying to do that playbook in Canada. And so if we are zombies, and if we are complacent, that too can happen here.
I think that there is clear evidence, that here in Toronto, there has been some organization, and I'm not quite sure which one it is, I have an idea, that has encouraged people who are afraid of the community, people who are afraid of immigrants, afraid of progress, to run for these trustee positions. We don't know who we're voting for on the municipal ballot. We don't know those personally. We don't know how to make our choice. And we could be inadvertently voting for somebody who is actually hostile to our kids.
Yeah.
Right? We could be electing somebody who's not great, and they're not starting at trustees, they're starting at parent councils. I went to a senior public where most of the people on the parent council were angry fathers, not caring moms. They were, really, really upset that the school had invited Pflag to come and talk to their kids. This is a senior public. We had been at that school every year for the previous decade, talking to the grade 6s. The 7s and 8s had already seen us.
Yeah.
6s every year. We didn't get to do that this year because the people on the parent council had changed. So we need to be much more intentional about who we vote for. We need to step up and serve on that parent council.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hear you, because, especially after COVID, people are stretched so thin and feeling, I think a lot of people are overwhelmed also with inflation and life. Everything happens all at once. But if we do not stand up, then we, are really liable to miss the boat.
Well, the other side is getting organized.
Yeah.
So we have to be prepared to step up.
Yeah. We were just talking while off camera about the power of Pflag in the Pride Parade. Do you want to share a little bit about, being on that side of walking. I know, as I just shared, when I was a young person coming out, how it would make me well up, and to think about all these parents, not reflective of myself as well, but feeling like there's never any space for me. But for you as a parent, when you walk through Pflag.
Yeah, I was surprised the first time I marched. There were people reaching out to us. There were people sobbing behind it was really a difficult march emotionally for us. Mm. And I think that's because the cheers that we're getting are almost half and half combined with cries of anguish. Mm. There are people who did not have supportive parents, and when they see us, we trigger that.
Yeah.
We remind them they didn't have supportive parents.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
It's quite astonishing, the power we have, and we have to use it with such care.
Yeah.
So when we're marching, we tell the people on the outside of our contingent, feel free. If someone is reaching out to you, reach back. We don't want to just walk by people who are upset. Yeah. Right? So we are a slow moving contingent in the Pride Parade. There's always a big space between us and the group ahead of us.
Yeah.
And we frequently miss our interviews with City TV.
Because you're out, actually.
Because we're too far back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that there's power and testimony to that.
Yeah.
And I think also, one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you about, and you had mentioned this about TDSB, was, irrespective of what people's thoughts are, children, every parent wants their child to be loved and supported and to meet their best potential. Mm-hmm. But yet, especially after COVID, with so many children being at home, who knows what the environment was like, different, when people moved to remote learning, you could see a glimpse of what a person's life was, where, it could be a 4-person family living in a 1-bedroom home to, someone who had their own bedroom, kids having their own bedroom. So it was the whole gamut.
Yeah.
People who had access to technology, people who didn't have access to it, people who are really too young to be in front of a screen for like 6 hours a day.
Yeah. And people who had their parents hovering right behind them the whole time they were on screen.
Yeah. So there were so many experiences, and I actually wanted to take the moment, because I think this particular episode, I wanted to dedicate this to the parents and to kids. How can we be creating more supportive environments, recognizing that there's bullying happening on the playground?
Yeah.
Circumstances where, as parents, we want to try and have as much control as possible, but yet the reality is what happens in the playground is so outside of our control. What happens outside of our, like when the kid's there, they're their own person. They have their own experiences. So even beyond the playground. I just remember you speaking about that at one of our parent council meetings.
Well, yes, because I had a kid who was bullied.
Yeah.
Right. I am going to switch now, quite intentionally. 2 weeks ago, my eldest told me their name is now Adam.
Okay.
And he uses the pronouns he and him.
Okay.
So when Adam was in elementary school, he knew he was different. The girls didn't get him, and he wasn't accepted by the boys. It was very hard for him. And when you are feeling like you don't belong, you have a shining bright light saying, come on, bully, come and get me, right? They absolutely zero in on the kid who's already not feeling like they belong, right? And they can be merciless in their bullying, and they were with Adam. Right? And those scars, if you go into, I was in a high school class the other day, and I said, raise your hand if you still remember something horrible that somebody said to you at school once, something that made you sting. Every hand went up. Every hand. And I was just asking about a word that somebody had used, or a sentiment that somebody had expressed. I wasn't talking about slamming somebody into the locker or physically bullying.
Yeah.
I was talking about verbally putting someone down in a way that just destroyed them in the moment. And they never forget that.
No.
They never do. So what we encourage kids to do is to understand that what makes us different makes us special. Right? There is nothing wrong with being different. It would be a boring world if we were all the same. But sometimes we don't understand what's going on inside a classmate's head. Nobody understood why Adam held back. Adam didn't understand really at that point what was going on himself, right? By grade 2, Adam had a crush on another girl. So there was that. But it wasn't until 2 weeks ago that Adam told me, I'm a dude. Right? I'm a guy. So what we tell them is, if you see somebody who's always alone, you don't need to be their best friend, but make sure they're not alone. Walk down the hall beside them. If you're crossing each other in the hall, say hi, smile, nod, acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you see someone actually being bullied, go approach. You don't have to get right beside them, but approach so the bully sees you walking toward them.
Right. Bystander intervention.
You haven't actually intervened. You haven't said anything,
right.
But it's absolutely an intervention if you walk toward them.
Yeah.
There are times when you can stand beside them, and that's all you have to do. You can be looking at your phone, but if you're beside that person, the bully's not going to approach.
Yeah.
Don't let them eat alone. Go sit with them. Tell them they can sit with you.
Yeah.
If that person decides to go to the principal and say, I'm being bullied, go with them, stand behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know there's somebody who saw it and will back them up.
Yeah.
An ally, it's more than inclusion, Lee. It's more than that. You have to actually support people.
Okay.
You actually have to be there for them. And it doesn't mean that you've become their,
best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's too much to ask of a child.
Yeah.
But making sure that nobody's alone is a worthy goal. And it's just being kind, right? It's being kind to people who, for some reason, don't feel they fit in. And it could just be because they're being bullied and they've been made to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because I think that resonates. As you said, every single kid in that class has had an experience that they remember being negatively affected.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the things is also recognizing that if you have had negative things happen to you, you replicate or you imitate that because that's what you know.
Right.
And so sometimes if you're not aware or supported in processing and dealing with those experiences, you may end up doing the same thing that you wish was not done to you.
Yeah.
And that's seen in so many different instances. And so I think the intervention of, you don't actually have to physically get involved or some sort of contact.
Yeah.
You can just stand beside someone.
Or walk toward them. Yeah.
Or walk towards them. And I remember you had a sense of some statistics that it happens at a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some of those numbers?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're aware pretty much of your gender by the age of 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know whether you're a boy or a girl, or you know that you don't feel like a boy or a girl.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that you probably have your first crush by the time you're in grade 2, which is a big clue about your sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So children very young have these experiences and immediately think, there's something wrong with me, right? I'm not like everybody else. Why did I have that crush on a girl instead of a boy? Or why is everybody having a crush and I'm not? There are all these feelings that kids are having, thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I different?
Yeah.
Right? They're not happy about being different. And what Pflag does is it goes into that grade 2 class or that grade 1 class. Say, it's okay. It's normal that some people feel that way. It's common. There are lots of people in this class who have felt exactly the way you're feeling, right? And one day you'll feel confident enough to talk about it, but you may not yet. And that's all right too, right? We just need to reassure people because the data is that it's 1 in 4.
Okay.
It's that common. It's 1 in 4. The school board, some years ago, every school board in Ontario is required to do a census annually. And you can Google school censuses and they'll come up. Don't do censi, they won't come up.
Okay.
Do censuses. And you'll see 25%, 26%, 25%, 26% in all these school boards of kids identifying as 2S LGBTQ. And, you know, I think we're at a tipping point, Lee. My generation, nobody came out. We all married somebody of the opposite sex, and they married us. Right? 1 in 4 of us. We're keeping our heads down, apparently.
It's true. I know many people who were in, cisgender relationships, but then we're like, no. And then they're like, that's not who I am.
Right. But that's probably your generation. I'm getting my first pension check this year. You're not. Right? Even in your generation, 1 in 4 didn't come out.
No.
But guess what? In your children's generation, 1 in 4 are coming out.
Okay. But that's terrifying for some parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And think what it might trigger.
Yeah.
Why do you get to come out?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So we are at an inflection point here. And just as that is happening, in comes the right? We have all these things interacting at once. This is a fragile point in our community where kids feel safe enough with their parents to come out to them. Kids are coming out in preschool. Little boys are asking if they can wear dresses in daycare. So we're at a point now where young parents are not putting boundaries around their children.
Okay.
And their children are responding by letting them know who they are.
Okay.
And all of that is unfolding in our elementary schools. So that door is open. It's open now. I can't see that number changing. I can't see, but there's going to be conflict.
Well, there is conflict, 100%.
Exactly. There's going to be conflict.
So what do we do about that?
Well, we need to be on it, right? We need to be watching it. We are helping the parents. We are helping the grandparents. Pflag is there for parents to reach out to. We put a poster a while ago on the TTC. They have this down period between the, now and back to school. There's nothing really happening on the TTC, so there are no ads there. So they offered us a free spot, and we had these posters done saying, treat their words with care, meaning when your kids come out, be kind, right?
Yeah.
Even if you didn't see it coming, say, I'll always love you.
Yeah.
Right? Treat their words with care. So the sayings on the posters were, Dad, I'm bi, Mom, I'm not a girl. They were all the coming out phrases, a series of posters lining the subway stations and on the buses. And we got extra people on answering our support line phone number because we thought we're going to get more calls than usual. We recruited people who had retired from answering the line. We reached out, could you answer the support line? We had everybody lined up. And virtually every call we got was from a man in his 50s. Not one man, a whole bunch of men.
Interesting.
They'd never come out. Putting that sentence out there reminded a lot of those 1 in 4.
Well, I haven't actually thought about that.
That they didn't come out.
Yeah.
So we were supporting members of the community who were married for 30 years, had children, had grandchildren, had, jobs where they weren't out. Some of them actually worked for the TTC. It was a hard time for them. It was a hard time for them. So we are at a point where people are at their most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to be kind. We need to give people a break. We, we just need to be gentle.
So how do we give people a break?
Well, when parents come to us and they are racked with emotion because their child has come out as transgender, we must not preach and we must not judge.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's hard for me, imagine how hard it is for a trans person who's also on the Zoom.
Yeah.
Right? But we have to give that parent room to tell us how they're feeling, and how they're feeling might disappoint us. But they have come over our threshold. They've entered our room, right? So we just need to give them space and empathy. We need to be gentle in our nudging, and they will get there. They always do. They will turn into me, right? They will turn into a volunteer someday.
Yeah.
But at the moment, they're in crisis. And we can't jump down their throats and say, just call him he. It's not that hard. We can't do that. We can't do that.
Well, I think it's really complex. Like, I know, it's very controversial right now about trans, dynamics. You just see it, and it's really hard to process for so many people.
Yeah.
And so I try to withhold judgment. It's hard.
Yeah.
And having conversations to help understand where someone is coming from, because actually we had a conversation starting off with parents worry about their kids' futures. They worry about, do you know what I mean? Where is the lashback? Where does that fear come from? It's not that, I don't think it's parents who don't love their children.
No.
I think it's coming from a place of,
what is their life going to be like?
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I know from my personal experiences, well, you'll never have kids. You won't have a family. Do you know, there are these images, the vision when you have kids, they're going to be this and this. And then all of a sudden that vision gets shattered.
Yeah.
And everything you grew up thinking that, it's going to be a certain way. The picture just is shattered. And then you have to go, oh, it's a new beginning. So as a parent, and talking to other parents, first of all, for parents to call Pflag, I think takes a certain kind of person, because I don't think there's no way my parents would have ever called Pflag. And I always wish that they would, but there's a cultural barrier and those dynamics. But we'll start where we start. But I think the enlightenment that you have of parents come from this fear of, oh, what is your future like?
Yeah. Well, there's two things I want to say here. First of all, lots of parents contact us.
Okay.
And you're right. They wouldn't all do it the same way. So certain parents are comfortable being in a room and telling their story to people they don't know. Some are comfortable on Zoom, right? But not in a room. Some will call and have a one-on-one conversation with me, but never go on Zoom or be in the room.
Right.
Some people won't call, they will text.
Okay.
And you can text our support line.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So in every case, we're getting a different person. And it has to do whether they're an extrovert or an introvert, but it also has to do partly with their faith, their culture, their concern that other people in the community might learn that they have a child who's on the rainbow.
Yeah.
There is still, unfortunately, having a kid who's 2S LGBTQ is still considered in some homes as a part of dirty laundry, right? And you don't air your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
Right? You keep it close. We had a kid come to us saying how hard his mom worked. That she had 3 part-time jobs, that she was doing her best to keep it all together, and that he had a brother who was in jail. And when he came out to his mom, she said, "You don't get to be gay. I don't have room for that." I can't cope with that. Shut up. You know, this was a mom who was just barely hanging on. She doesn't have time to call Pflag. Who's supporting her?
Yeah.
Right. This is what I lie awake at night wondering. How do we help? And if that is not Pflag, how do we help you start something that's different for your community? How do we? So we just did a panel in Farsi, a webinar where all of the speakers were speaking the Persian language, and they were talking to a Persian audience. We've funded that. We put it together. We have a pilot project now that is expressly aimed at Chinese speakers, so Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yeah.
And it's for South Asian only, right? It's meant targeting that group. So we're trying to support people who want to support people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So we're in the background saying, sure, we have a trans femme, and that's people who are feminine, trans women.
Yeah. Okay.
Or non-binary and feminine. Yep. We have a group for them because they couldn't afford a Zoom license. So we said, sure, hop on, right? So they now host their trans femme and NB group on Pflag's Zoom account and on our calendar, right? So there's a question. There's another example of us saying, okay, you know, we'll do that for you.
Yeah. It's a very caring organization.
Well, I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And anybody who wants to do that should contact us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they do contact us, and we are trying to make it easier for them to contact us. But you're right. There are a lot of parents who've never heard of us. Yeah. We're well known in the community, but we're not well known outside the community. Yeah.
So how do, in terms of supporting parents?
Yeah.
What are some tools, apart from listening to them, what are some tools that you offer? What are common, I don't even know if there's a common theme.
Well, one of the things that happens in these fora is that parents talk to each other and ask each other questions. So, or a member of somebody who's just starting their transition will ask people who are further on in their transition, where do you go for laser therapy? Or have you found a binder that's more comfortable? Mine's pinching. Mm-hmm. Where did you get yours? Where did you go? How can I get help because I don't have any money for a binder? Mm-hmm. All these things come up in the conversations at every meeting. It's one of the reasons that I keep going back.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I learned from parents of trans kids and from trans people themselves made me better able to take that call from Adam.
Yeah.
Right? The community educated me. What a gift that was.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a gift just having a kid on the rainbow.
Yeah.
Because it opens your mind to that community that is invisible to so many people, right?
Yeah.
And it's a big friggin' community.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in it, and many of them are not out. So how can we make places safe for them? I fear the schools are becoming less safe.
Yeah. Well, we see that. We see an attack on that.
The good news is that workplaces are becoming more safe.
Yeah.
Right? We are now talking to business owners about going beyond allyship, going beyond the basics, going beyond. What more can you do? How can your place of work be a beacon for people?
Yeah.
Right? If you can't be out at home, if you can't be out as part of your faith community, you have a workplace that is separate from all of that, and you can be you at work. Right?
Yeah.
They will keep your privacy, like they will keep it private, and they will let you be you.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I hope continues. I was reading the paper about how the rise of the right has also put threats to stores. So for instance, like Target in the States had a prominent, hey, celebrating Pride.
And Starbucks now.
And they're like, oh, and then they reduced all the Pride merchandise and all this stuff.
And they did that to keep their employees safe.
Yeah.
Because you wind up people to think that you're predators. You wind up people to think we're groomers.
Yeah.
Right? My gay kid is not interested in straight people or children. They're interested in gay adults who like them.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to groom a straight person. They don't want to mess with a kid.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to think that.
Yeah.
But it's being promulgated. It's being used as a wedge issue. It's so irresponsible what's happening in the United States. They have a 1 in 4 chance for each child they have that they've got a kid on the rainbow. Right? 2S LGBTQ kids are being born to those people.
Yeah. Well, look at Dick Cheney's kid.
I know. Well, Dick Cheney's kid was out about that. Dick Cheney's kid found a way to be out. A lot of them will not.
Yeah. I just think about how challenging that is, like all the pressure.
Yeah.
Political pressure, social pressure.
It's hard.
Pressure.
This community has such a hard road to hoe.
Yeah.
No other minority has to announce who they are. No other minority is at risk of being rejected by their parents. It is only this minority. It needs more. It needs more support. It needs more help.
So how do we do that?
Whatever you can do. Whatever you can do.
What's the message that we can put out there?
Support Rainbow Railroad. Support Youth Line. Support Pflag. Support EGAL, which does the legal challenges. Support Ruby's. Support, the shelters for kids. 40% of the kids on the street are from this community. Way beyond 1 in 4.
Yeah.
Almost half of the kids without homes in our city are 2S LGBTQ. Right? So Ruby's and Sprout House are shelters for them, but probably not enough. Covenant House has also a majority of kids who are in the community now too.
Yeah.
There's not enough space for them that's safe.
It's true.
Now, if a kid comes to the door of Covenant House, they're told there are trans people living in Covenant House. Do you have a problem with that? There are gay people living in Covenant House. Do you have a problem with that? And if you do, here's an address of another shelter. That's a Catholic shelter saying that. Right? So there are people who are doing the extras. There are people who are saying, we're standing on their side.
Yeah.
Right? We're making them our priority.
Yeah.
There just needs to be more than that. And the school board needs to be emphatic in its support. The school board has a responsibility. And it can't start pandering. It can't start pandering to that very loud voice that says they're dangerous.
Yeah.
There's nothing dangerous about kids waving rainbow flags and marching around the block and calling it their pride parade.
Yeah.
There's nothing dangerous about that at all.
Yeah. Well, I think supporting that, the mental health and wellness.
Yeah.
What are ways to help support that?
Well, the mental health and wellness piece broadly is a nightmare. If you have a child who needs those services, you have a hell of a time finding them. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just need to keep the pressure on our politicians to fund all of healthcare.
Yeah.
Not just our bodies. I'd like them to include our eyes and our teeth as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that, what you have shared is a stark reality.
Yeah.
there's opportunities. There's certainly lots of challenges, but there are opportunities if we.
And without, always bringing back things to Pflag, without any doubt, the TransPulse survey that was done by Rainbow Health and has been redone several times to keep it up to date, every time says that the risk of depression and suicidality is reduced 98% if you have one accepting parent.
90%?
98.
Wow. Wow, that's a huge.
So having one parent who accepts you and helps you.
It's powerful.
The most powerful thing to address that we have.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful to hear that as 98%. And
so the work that we're doing is God's work.
It is, absolutely. And I hope, you were the former president of the Toronto Pflag chapter and you haven't left. Like you continue to be a passionate volunteer.
Yes.
And inspiring others and helping others and creating space, because I know that is certainly one of the things that you do, which is like, oh, do you need help there? Okay, well, this is where we're going to help and support you and help create opportunities.
Yeah.
And we need more people like you, and which is a big part of why I wanted to speak with you, of sharing the truth.
Well, I get so much back from it. I really do. I was talking to a grade 4 class on Zoom yesterday.
Yeah.
And I did the little presentation that we do. I told Adam's story. I explained that Adam was a new thing for me.
Yeah.
And that I was going to try not to slip into the wrong pronoun or the wrong name. I did slip, unfortunately, but I trying not to.
And that's okay too, because it's a learning process.
Exactly. And also it's good for kids to know you don't have to have it all figured out when you're 5.
Right.
You can just start with knowing you hate dresses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, our kids are on a journey of discovery.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't get it sorted until they're older.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that kids will be gentle with their parents. Even if they know they're a dude, for example, they'll just say, I'm gay, because they think their parents can manage that.
Right.
And they're hoping that one day they'll be able to manage the truth, which is a bit more than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Little steps.
Even Adam started out by saying, I'm non-binary.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll use them, they, or he, him. And finally I said, look, what is it?
Right.
Is it them, they, or he, him? He, him.
Okay.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Gotcha.
Well,
so you don't, they're not going to have it figured out right away. We need to leave space for people to have their journeys in a safe way.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to help parents get by that first surprise, that first emotional roller coaster, and get to the place where they are there for their children.
Yeah.
Right? To help them, because their kids need their help. They can't access stuff without their parents' consent when they're young.
Well, I feel like it's so wonderful. Like you have been so active from such a early age in Adam's life of being a advocate, a personal advocate. And that even on this journey of having the surprise just 2 weeks ago of it is not they, them, it's he, him. And that even for yourself, someone who's seasoned in supporting other parents, that you're like, okay, I have had the experience and now I need to process that. And it's okay to slip. Like, like we're not perfect. So, because there's that fear of, am I saying the right thing? Am I saying the wrong thing? Am I doing the right thing? And I think we have to also remember we're all humans.
Yes.
And nothing is formulated, and that there's space for growth, challenges, change. And it's not perfect, because I think many people feel uncomfortable talking about these things because they're like, if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to get lambasted. Or if I do this,
make an effort.
Yeah.
Make an effort. It's always appreciated.
Yeah.
I was actually quite concerned, though. It was the first time when I did this grade 4 thing that I was going to speak about Adam.
Well, it was big. It was yesterday.
I know. It was big. And at the end of the presentation, the teacher asked if the kids had any questions. And this little boy named Kareem said he had a question. He was never on camera, so I didn't actually see him. He wanted to know if I was okay. So children naturally are kind.
Yeah.
Naturally. We need to encourage them not to walk away from that.
Yeah.
To continue to be kind. And we need to remind adults how good it is to be kind. What you get back when you're kind.
Yeah. I think that's a very powerful.
I got that back from a kid in grade 4. So why would I not want to continue doing this?
Absolutely. No, I thank you very
I'll
much
do this
for that.
until I don't know my name.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I mean, one of the things I just wanted to end on was your favorite quote, which is too soon old, too late smart.
Yeah. 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 You know, even as I let Adam not wear dresses, I was critical of parents who allowed a teammate of Adam's to have a boy's haircut.
Right.
So I've been on my own journey, and I have Adam to thank for that. I'm so lucky that that child walked into my life.
Well, I think there's also it's also a testament to who you are as a person to be able to, recognize your own abilities to change the narrative, your own abilities to change the reactions and to shift and to share love.
Yeah.
And to be kind.
Well, it's the best way to be.
Yeah.
It's the best way to be.
So the message really is something that is very simple, but sometimes hard to do, but to be kind and to maintain that kindness.
And let your kids know that no matter what, you love them. No matter what.
Thank you, Anne.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, no problem at all.
Yeah.